Hi, my name is Fred Mastropasqua. I'm a Scrum Alliance certified Scrum trainer with Clearly Agile. Today I'm going to talk to you about PM responsibilities in Scrum, project manager responsibilities in Scrum, in the sense of why is there no project manager in Scrum, right? And where does the project manager go? What happens? Or who's responsible for those things that a traditional project manager are responsible for? So let's say that I'm a great PM and the business comes to me and says, "Hey Fred, we want you to deliver this scope of work. All right, we heard you're a great PM, and so we want you to do this. Get us here. That's our destination." All right, and today, where are we today? We're right about here today. I know the least about what we're doing today, but I need to go figure out this plan and put this puzzle together. All right, so I go back home. I interview everyone on the team. I figure out who's going to be working on this, and I start putting together my plan. So I say, all right, starting Monday, we need Jane to start this work here. And right when she's done, we're going to have Bob start working on this piece here. In parallel to that, we're going to have Mary work on that item there. When they're done with those two pieces, then we can have Charles work on this item here. And then in parallel to that, we'll have Mark work on this piece, and we need to have also Bob come back and work on that item here. But I getting close to might be missing my timeline as I think about this, so they're gonna have to just work some weekends, and that's just part of my puzzle, my plan. All right, when this is done here, then we can have Ed work on this piece here, and when Ed's halfway through, right, there's a slight dependency here. Then we can have John work on that item. And when they're done with this piece, then I'll have Jane come back, or actually we'll say Mary and Jane, and they come back and they'll finish it up for us. And then we'll be done. Awesome. Right? And I present this back to the business. Hey business, here's the plan. That'll get us from here, right, to our destination. And then what does this look like, right? What kind of chart or report have I presented back to the business? Right? A Gantt chart, right? Some type of Gantt chart, some type of plan of action, right, to the T. This is how we're going to get there, right? And I've detailed it all out. And what am I, as a traditional PM, responsible for? What are all the things a traditional PM is responsible for, right? So start thinking about what some of those are. So we could say, I'm responsible for scope, right? I'm responsible for what comes in and what goes out. I'm responsible for the budget, right? I'm responsible for making sure we stay on budget. Right? I'm responsible for the schedule, right? The timeline, you could say, or the milestones, right? Anything around the time. I'm responsible for, what else am I responsible for as a traditional PM? I'm responsible for, let's say, communication to stakeholders, right? Setting expectations, right? Expectation management. I'm responsible for the risk. I'm responsible for the quality. I'm responsible for that as well. I'm responsible for communication, we'll say, within the team, doing the work. All right, so I'm responsible for all these things. And maybe there's some more things you can think of that are on there, but in a general sense, right, a traditional PM is responsible for all this. And so I cannot help but be a command and control type of style of leadership or manager, because this is my plan I put together as a PM. This is the things I'm responsible for. And so Jane, you better start this on Monday, because I'm going to crack the whip. And Bob and Mary, you better be ready, or Bob and Mark better be ready to follow this up, right? And because I'm responsible for all these things, and if my schedule gets screwed up, I got to fix the puzzle, and I'm still driving towards this. I'm driving towards this destination, right? And so it's very command and control mindset, right? I'm responsible for all of this, so I'm going to command and control everybody involved, right, to make sure it gets done. And that's what a traditional PM does. Now, in an agile world, agile mindset, right, we start here, and we have a vision, something to get to, some destination over here that we're trying to achieve, right? We're not going to make a detailed plan that takes us all the way over there. What we're going to do is create a high-level roadmap of what are the high-level things we want to accomplish to get there. So some high-level functionality, features, destination points, right, along the way. Right, priority-wise, we think this is what we want to do at a high level. If this was a vacation I was planning and I was planning a roadmap for a vacation, right? Traditionally I might figure out, okay, what hotel, what tour guide, what places are we going to eat, what restaurants are we going to visit, exactly what days and times are we leaving and jumping from this bus to that bus to get here in that destination. And I could figure all that out in detail, right? This here, I'm just simply saying, maybe I want to see wonders of the world, man-made natural wonders of the world. And so I'm going to say, I want to go to France, see the Eiffel Tower. How we get there and what we do once we get there, I don't know, but that's a roadmap goal. Then I want to see maybe the pyramids in Egypt. And then maybe I want to see something, the Taj Mahal possibly. Or I want to go to New Zealand and see the Hobbiton where the Hobbit was filmed. High level roadmap, right? And then we figure out just enough to get to that next destination, right? And make sure that gets accomplished, but we're not going to figure it all out up front, right? We're going to figure it out as we go. And so the team will do some work and stop and say, hey, business, any feedback? How are we doing? Business is like, you know what? There's not much to see, so keep going, all right? How about now? Any feedback? Really can't tell what's going. There's not enough there yet, so just keep going in the same direction, all right? How about now, business? Okay, now that we're seeing more, we do have feedback, and we want to make some alterations, and so we want to slightly pivot, right? We pivot off in this direction. Now, when we say pivot, right, if I'm building a refrigerator and we pivot, I'm not building an iPhone. I'm not building a whole different product, right? That's a whole different product. Start all over again. If you're building a refrigerator and you pivot, you're still building a refrigerator. The difference is the functionality might change. The features might change. Maybe we decide on the pivot based on customer feedback that we need to move the freezer to the bottom, or we need to put in a smart screen, or we need to put a water filtration system in. It's still a refrigerator though, but we're pivoting some of the functionality based on feedback and the needs. Right. And then we pivot a little bit more. We get some feedback. Are we going in the right direction now? Yep, keep going in that direction. Then we might pivot again based on more feedback. Go off in this direction. And then we might pivot again. And eventually we end up not where we thought in the beginning we needed to go, but where we actually needed to end up for the business. Right. Based on feedback, this is where we really needed to be. I've been on projects where you deliver exactly what's asked for. And then what happens is, and some of you probably have this experience, is a few months later, that project gets canned and we replace it with something else, right? Or no one uses it because it doesn't actually accomplish the needs of the business, right? The idea here is that you're going to do it a little bit along the way. You're going to get feedback and you're going to pivot and course correct. And because of that, this is why we don't plan it out in detail ahead of time, right? We're doing it as we go. Now to go back to the responsibilities of a project manager, this is specific to Scrum, so let's just talk about the Scrum roles real quick. We have the product owner. They represent the customer, right? They represent the business. They're from the business, ideally. They're setting the direction. We have the Scrum Master. They're master of nobody. They're master of the process, making sure the process is being followed. They're a neutral party here. And then we have the 3 to 9 cross-functional development team that's doing the work of your product, building your product, right? And so they're the ones actually converting backlog items into potentially shippable product increment, right? So those are your 3 roles there. Of these 3 roles, right, who's responsible for scope? Who's responsible for adding or removing scope to the project, right? You might have guessed it, that's the product owner, right? It's a product owner role. Now, who might add scope that nobody asked for? Maybe as a product owner, I say, hey team, I need to do domestic phone numbers, and so I want to capture phone numbers. And the team goes ahead and adds the ability to also capture international numbers, right? They're adding scope nobody asked for. So they're affecting scope as well, right? Who's making sure that these two are talking and the development team's not adding more scope than was actually needed, right? Scrum Master, right? They're making sure that they're communicating and not adding additional things that we don't need right now. Who's responsible for the budget? Who figures out how we spend that money and how we use that money to direct the work of the team? Right? The product owner, they're responsible for the budget. Who affects the budget based on how they do the work? Right? Maybe we have to select states in the U.S. for the place we were born at, possibly, and how many people like us are in that state, some type of count. Well, we could do a simple drop-down list where you just choose a state and it gives you a number, or we could have a really fancy map of the United States, right? And so you hover over, it does all this cool stuff and shows you a number. One takes more time than the other, right? So who's affecting the budget as well is the development team, based on how they do the work, right? Based on how they do the work. So the development team needs to understand the budget, needs to understand the schedule, And who's making sure that these two are communicating? The Scrum Master. Hey, you guys want to do that fancy map of the United States? Just make sure we get the okay from the product owner. That might increase the size or relative size of that thing, possibly. Who's responsible for the schedule? Who knows when we have to go to production, when we should release, what dates we need to hit? That's going to be the product owner. Who affects that schedule based on how they do the work? That's going to be your development team. Again, back to that example. A simple drop down or a really fancy map of the United States. One takes more effort, one takes longer. That's going to affect the schedule. Who's making sure they're communicating about that and they're aware of that? Scrum Master. All right. Who's responsible for the schedule within the sprint? Right? Development team. Right? They're responsible for the schedule within the sprint. Right? Scrum Master too, making sure everything's coordinated and moving along. Communication to stakeholders and expectation management. Right? Who's responsible for that? Product owner. Who might be providing some data to help with that communication? Right? Scrum Master. Risk. Who would know, right? We have our backlog and we have to do augmented reality. Who would know that we have no idea how to do this, augmented reality? Who would know that that's a risk? Right? The development team. We've never done this before. It's a risk. We've never done credit card payment before. It's a risk. Right? So the development team would know that's a risk. Who's making sure they're identifying those risks? Right? Scrum Master, please identify these risks. Product team, is there anything in here that you think is a risk? Who has to allow time in the schedule and to the budget in order to do some research to mitigate those risks? Right? Product owner. All right, we've never done credit card payments before, so I'm going to give you a little bit of time to do some research and figure some of that stuff out. Quality. Right? Who's responsible for the output in the sprint, for that quality output? Right? That's going to be the development team. Who's responsible for accepting or rejecting that output, right, based on the quality? That's going to be the product owner. Right? Whose responsibility is to find ways for process improvement so we can produce quality things at the end of the sprint? Right? That's going to be your Scrum Master. Who's responsible for communication within the team? Right? That's going to be your Scrum Master. Right? Who's got to speak up? Or obviously your development team too. Right? But within the team, it's going to be all of them. Product owner is going to be making sure they understand the vision and the direction. So you can see that your traditional project management responsibilities are spread across the 3 roles of Scrum from different perspectives, right? Each role has a different perspective from these responsibilities. So when you talk to an Agilist and you say, hey, we have a Scrum team with a project manager, we kind of scratch our heads because we're like, well, what is a traditional PM doing, right? Because your existing Scrum role should be doing those things, right? So there's some disconnect there, right? Either they're not doing what their roles that they're supposed to be doing, or they're not doing these things that like they should be. And so is a PM having to fill in those gaps, right? Or it's just a misunderstanding of the roles. Now, what do you do with your PMs? Now you could, a PM, right? Traditional PM, a lot of times they go into some type of Scrum Master role. That's not a problem other than when they get put in that role, right? Are they trained with that mindset change, right? So I'm a traditional PM here, and someone tells me, hey, you're going to be a Scrum Master. If I don't get any training and understanding of the mindset, I'm used to this command and control where I'm responsible for all these things. I'm not going to make a great Scrum Master. I'm not going to be a neutral party here, right? I'm going to try to control it all, and I'm going to make a horrible Scrum Master, right? So when you go from a traditional PM to a Scrum Master, it's a complete mind shift change, right? It's a complete state of mind that you're changing. It's no longer do this and controlling everything. It's more of a, what can I do to serve you? It's a servant leader, servant style of a servant leader. It's completely different than a traditional PM. But it could be done, right? You could also go into a product owner role. I've seen PMs go into a product owner role instead. That's another place you could go. If you're kind of unsure and you have the choice, ask yourself this question. Do you care more about how it's built, the product, or you care more about what we're building? All right. If you care more about what we're building, then you might be a better product owner. If you care more about how we're building it, then you might want to go to the Scrum Master route. Now, if those two options aren't there, a PM might also become something a little bit higher, something called a product manager. That could be something they elevate to. It's not a project manager, but a product manager. And then there might be product owners that report to that product manager, right? And they're looking at big scale things. They're looking at the life cycle. How do we support this thing? How do we market this thing? Like bigger picture than just a product, just the building of the product itself. If you're doing some type of scaling technique, right? Whether you're using Scrum at scale, using SAFe, something like that, a project manager might go into some type of release train engineer or Scrum Master or some other role that's at one of the scaling levels possibly. That's outside the scope of this video. So that's the PM responsibilities in Scrum. That's why we kind of look at you silly when you say you have a PM on a Scrum team. And I hope if you have any comments or questions, please put them below. Again, my name is Fred Mastropasqua with Clearly Agile, and thank you very much.